Okay, we are live and a little short on time, but no big deal. It's May 14th, 2025. The next big event is the movie Final Destination. Get a little bit of flack because some people think that pointing out stuff in movies is trivial. And this is because they think the news is real and not trivial. And I'm sorry, but this is Wonderland. This is everything is quite literally the opposite. It's all mind control when you're inside of it. And we've gone down that particular trail they lead you through. And I'm rejecting all these built in presuppositions. I think we need to just accept the reality of fake news and follow it through with, beyond just labeling it fake news. And what does it really mean that we have a systemic fakery? Well, that's what we talk about every day. And systemic fakery is a bigger issue than any of the various scary scenarios about the collapse of civilization. It's like, no, the civilization is not going to collapse. We're not going to be taken over or conquered or invaded because that already happened. We are a conquered, pacified species, and we are under some kind of collective spell, probably for our own good. I mean, we can debate it, look around and ask yourself, well, is this perhaps a benevolent dictatorship or is this malevolent? It could be both. I'm not quite sure. Like, I understand the Gnostic concept of the demiurge, and I often express my views as essentially Manichaean. Uh, and it's not overly simplistic. I think that actually does explain quite a bit. And I've been doing a little bit of research. In fact, I came across something kind of interesting about this individual. When I talk about Manichaeism, light versus dark, we're talking about a religious movement that was big at one point. And the founder of it, and there's various myths about him I've seen, like he's synthesizing all the other religions, infusing it with this Gnostic concept of the war on souls by the dark versus light, you're awakening to your light self, not forgetting where you came from and getting lost in this place. And the founder of its name, they refer to him as Mani, Mani, Mani. And I found some interesting little tidbits of information here that I think you might find worth knowing since we talk about this stuff so often. And he seems to be a significant figure in all of this. So I'll get to that and more. I was just looking for the Latin translation of his name, and it was like Cubris, something along those lines. I'm going to pull it up there on my screen. And I have figured out how to take phone calls without sharing your numbers. I'm on a very, generally I like to have two screens, multiple windows open. I'm very limited right now, and you can blame Restream for that. But as soon as I get back to a full version of everything, it won't be an issue. So I'm not able to share my screen and do phone calls. So if you want to call in, this is the night. 505-510-4226. I'll put the number on the screen. Open topics. I'm following so many threads right now that I think are worth going into. This morning, we really hyper-focused on the trailer for Final Destination because it has a penny that falls from the Space Needle and causes the whole thing to blow up. I mean, it's just one of the movies got this interesting cause and effect thing, and you kind of see these unlikely things happening, the highly improbable because death is nudging things. But I mean, in fact, if you want to see a good example of synchronicity, just watch the Final Destination series, where you're looking at these alignments and these coincidences that, and also a lot of foreshadowing. In fact, with synchronicities, coincidences, whatever you want to call them. But there's a scene in the trailer where they're in the Space Needle and the floor cracks. And the other night we were talking about the earthquake scenario with Seattle. So the floor cracks open. And there's a penny that flies in front of the Space Needle as it blows up. So you got Abraham Lincoln and the Space Needle, and it's blowing up. So you put this together, you got the assassination narrative, the head wound, You got the Daniel Penny psyop, that is the opposite side of the Luigi psyop. We're talking about the vigilantes on each side of the political horseshoe. And then you have the head wound in association with the explosion in Seattle, which has been a reoccurring theme in predictive programming, as frequently pointed out by Jurassic liars. And we talked about this morning, discussing specifically East Palestine, Ohio's mushroom cloud toxic airborne event and white noise being 42 miles from Butler, where the head wound thing happened. But there's a lot of references brought up in this, and the significance of this Final Destination coming out now ties into its proximity to 6/11, but also it brings into the picture that the series has always been about a prophesied destruction of the Space Needle, but it didn't happen. The prophet interrupted it, and that's why there's been this chain of tragic events following her bloodline. And the first one that came out was the one about planes exploding, and it was right before 9/11. So you have this 9/11 and Seattle Space Needle hypothetical 9/11 like situation brought up in the same fictional universe, which has already been referenced as a source of predictive programming. So it should be interesting. The timing of it really stands out to me as being exceptionally conspicuous, but the trailer is deep. And so I expect the movie to have quite a lot more. So we'll discuss that in a couple of days. I'm going to watch it on Friday morning, and we'll talk about it Friday afternoon. When I go to movies like this, I'm going to analyze it. I bring a notebook, and I'm usually just writing in the dark there. I can then later transcribe it. That's been my process. And I go in so often with a clipboard and notebooks that the staff think that I'm some kind of reviewer, and they treat me really nice, like I'm rating them. All right, we're joined by Pete Trippa, Jungle Jim, King Ravana, Flozik, Clockwork 113. Yes, we were talking about the significance of 113 in Pixar films and elsewhere. There's just so much to go through. And this morning I alluded to something with the PSYOP trading cards, and I think the numbers are, we have like 50 or so designs, but I'm going to narrow it down to 33. And tomorrow I'm going to go ahead and post a newsletter. And if you want to order the first set, there will be about a 7-day window before I place the orders. After that, they'll be sold individually, although I might retain a few sets. I've done the math on it, and it works. And producing a set of cards is actually very feasible. It's not that expensive, totally worth it. And I've been selling cards for years, not trading cards, but art cards. But I use the same protective sleeves and all of that, which will be useful for this. But we have a lot of designs for these PSYOP trading cards that I think you'll find entertaining. And I've been looking into the idea of creating an analogous game like the Illuminati playing card game. And I have found some viable processes that have been ChatGPT has kind of wrote up for me. I'm looking through it and I'm thinking, okay, this could definitely work. All right, let me bring up my notes. And again, phones are open. That's why I'm not sharing screens. I think I have a system where it won't show your numbers. It seems like everything's kind of downgraded, and it has, but I'm expecting everything to be back into optimal form in about a week. Massive solar storm causes communication blackouts. Going through my breakdown of what people have been posting in the Gilded, and I saw a few other references. The blackout stuff is all tied into the game. In fact, I saw some stuff today about solar panels that seem to be alarming. I think I'll find it in my notes here as well. All right, here we are. Again, I can't share my screen, unfortunately, but we'll get to it. And one more thing, phones are open 505-510-4226. I'm only here for the next 30 minutes. So if we don't get any callers in the next 15, I'm going to turn the phones off because I have some audio I would also like to play here. Gondola says Infinite Plane Radio got a strike and all I got was a lousy t-shirt. Yeah, the main channel caught Disease X. We had a Kanye West parody. I got to watch it with the parody and satire. Apparently, we're too Poe. Poe's Law, which says, if you're not familiar with Poe's Law, because I often refer to Poe's like Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes, Poe is the name of an individual, but it's an adage. And what it means is parody of extremism. So there's this kind of a rule that says that any, I guess, satire or parody that is done too well becomes indistinguishable from the real thing. So a parody of extremism would be somebody's just faking it, but anyway, you kind of get the idea here. We can't really tell, and there's quite a bit of a parody that we put into South Pole that it just couldn't tell. It thought we were being extreme. Like I wasn't endorsing Kanye West or Ye when I depicted him as Helium with a helium balloon over his head, getting kicked in the rear by his girlfriend on a leash. I was just making jokes, but they gave us a strike for hate speech. It's been a long time since I've been accused of hate speech. The process, though, is completely Kafka-esque, impersonal. They don't call you and say, hey, what'd you mean by this? They're just like, nope, you lose 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks of no uploading, no live streaming. But we've dealt with this so often. You may not know the history of this channel, but we've had more than 160 YouTube channels shut down for hate speech, medical misinformation, you name it. And we just continue to move forward. Getting monetized was not even something I had planned on. I decided that we were going to keep this thing going, whether or not YouTube makes it feasible financially. You can't let them control what you say by letting them have the ability to, dictate your paychecks, which they do for a lot of people. I understand now why so many people play it safe and have to compromise on the truth and all that. Makes perfect sense now. But if you're not getting censored and you're not getting blocked, it doesn't mean you're a shill. Some people are just really good at this. In fact, if you want a master class on how to avoid being censored while still being committed to truth, look at Jake the A-Hole's channel. He has a good system, but you have to be smart about it. For us, it was after 2020, they were exceptionally sensitive, and I platformed any phone calls. And a Yay thing was clearly done with some kind of AI scrub where they just went through everybody's channels because they're trying to shut down his latest song, which is getting a lot of hype from a lot of people for some reason. But personally, I am underwhelmed by it. I think it could have been shocking years ago, but again, I've said this before that he's overplayed his shock cards. He can only do this for so long. And if you really look at it, he's been doing this Black Klansman thing since 2013, so it's not even new. As far as the song going viral, it doesn't seem organic to me. It's sort of like that guy Tom McDonald, that rapper. Some of these individuals, you wouldn't hear about them if they weren't being platformed by these certain propaganda conduits. All right, here is what I was looking for. The Chinese manufacturers of the inverters and batteries, we're talking about these solar panels, and this is MSN.com, so you can trust it. This is actually on Reuters. Rogue communication devices have been found in Chinese solar power inverters. U.S. energy officials are reassessing the risk posed by Chinese-made devices that play a critical role in renewable energy infrastructure after unexplained communication equipment has been found inside of them. The solar panels. And what they are alarmed about here is they say that these rogue communication devices are not listed in the product documents. So what does this mean? It means that they can shut it down. That's kind of what they're saying. It's a security issue. It says, I think the Chinese are in part hoping that the widespread use of inverters limits the options that the West has to deal with this security issue. Elements in our core infrastructure are at risk of destruction or disruption. So you have these rogue communication devices skirting firewalls that can be switched off remotely, and it says that this could damage our energy infrastructure and trigger widespread blackouts. And just a little while ago, somebody in Discord had posted some articles about these recent blackouts. But the blackouts in this sense, we're talking about China. And there was a time a few years ago where you could pay some money and you'd get a one-on-one session with General Michael Flynn, general in the Q Army. And he used to tell people in private that China was going to use balloons to detonate EMP devices high up in the stratosphere and black everything out. And specifically, he said, don't be too close to any of your vaxxed relatives because he said that their heads would explode. People pay money for the real crazy stuff. And I've seen this in other places as well. I was checking out that Flat Earth conference in Denver, and if you paid extra for the super secret, high level, top tier conference with the VIP pass, you'd hear these stories about how, yeah, there's a dome and it's going to crash, it's going to crack, it's going to break, and it's going to rain glass down on everybody. They were actually teaching, they called it Skyfall. Yes, there was a sect within the flat earth, the biblical flat earth community, that were preaching a doomsday scenario that involved the sky falling. And one of them told me it was something about the Lord is going to roll the sky back like a scroll and we would all see his face. So you're looking up at this giant face of the Lord as glass rains down on all the globe earthers. Like that's how every religion is. Like when their God comes, when their judgment day comes, it's going to kill the other guys. I think that's why the people who are like, we want to believe with the aliens, they think they're going to get beamed up. Rapture. And after the rapture, what do? Well, you punish the people who weren't good enough. Like a lot of religions are just dark revenge fantasies. Certainly true with the religion of QAnon. That was just a sick revenge fantasy. And I still see a lot of these fantasists on Twitter. I saw one guy today must have been hitting the Q pipe. He's like, the executions have been going on since 2020. They have executed 500,000 people. The National Guard at Guantanamo are apparently executing the deep state. But they can't tell us because we can't take it. So we have to wait. And then Trump's going to tell us someday. And then all the QAnon people will be vindicated. I mean, what a horrible fantasy. And they get mad when you tell them it's just a delusion. And I'm like, look, I don't want it to be true. And you do. It's not true. But the fact that it's not true and you want it to be true is disturbing because at the heart of it is child sacrifice, brain harvesting, and all kinds of sick stuff. What's up, Deprogrammed Truther? Dwayne Garrett, Gondola Wish. Howdy. 505-510-4226. You still have another 10-minute window to call in. We're talking about blackouts. Ice Cube said something interesting. This was the clip I wanted to play. And I'm just going to paraphrase it. But he's talking about social engineering and guard railing in music. Nothing we haven't heard before. This was emphasized in that movie, They Clone Tyrone. The idea that the record executives had a vested interest in the prison industrial complex and that they were creating music deliberately to influence people to be combative towards law enforcement and create this pipeline. And this is not all that far-fetched. But what's more, he was explaining how this happens. And, is the artist told what to do? And he said it's more like a filter, that if you toe the line, you move up. Sort of like, I think in media itself, you don't get to breathe the air in MSM unless you adhere to certain orthodoxies. But he was talking about the influence that the record executives have over what is produced. And it's indirect. It doesn't have to be direct. But the fact is that they're serving as pawns. And this has me thinking about these directors we often talk about. We talk about the meta scripters, which we can point to. We have valid reasons to associate certain directors with specific psychological operations. Now, they may not be on the ground there with the DHS directing it in person with the director's chair and all that. However, their representation in the body of predictive programming is what I'm basing this off of. Okay, we have a phone call. Let me go ahead and get that. Hey, what's up, caller? Oh, what's up, Jurassic Liars? Let me go ahead and get you on the screen here. Now, your number is not going to be shared. I had to figure out how to make it
Yeah,
because last time.
yeah. Don't worry about it.
Okay, no, we're good.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
No, you're good. You're good. Okay, so let's move on here.
All right.
Now, did you hear me talking about how the trailer for Final Destination has a penny go in front of the Space Needle as it blows up?
Yeah, I didn't hear the whole thing, but I heard you talking about because can I just tell you that I actually saw the movie?
Oh, really? How? I didn't think it was out yet.
No, it's not out, but you can watch sites.
Oh, okay. I need to catch up.
You know, there's like a site you can go.
Okay. Well, I need to. I need to be. I should be getting ahead of the curve here. So, what did you see in it?
Well, I'm going to tell you this: the movie. I'm not going to tell you the details of it because the movie, in my opinion, sucked. Okay, but the premise at the beginning would have been good, you know, if they had stayed with kind of the beginning of it, but not the beginning, but like the first 10, 15, 20 minutes when it was, but because they were setting it in the I guess in the 1950s, where they're going back to the original premonition of this woman. But like I said, I don't want to, because maybe you saw something I don't, so that's why I don't want to. I want people to actually go watch it, and I want to see if I missed something. Maybe I wasn't paying attention closely because I was watching it on my cell phone. So maybe it's different when you're watching it at the theater or something. So I did not see anything other than the predictive programming we've seen in the trailers. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay. Now I have to agree with you. These movies are terrible. Like, I haven't recommended a movie because it's good in a long time. I'm just analyzing propaganda, and they seem to be getting measurably worse. Megalopolis was unwatchable, but I forced myself.
Yeah, well, can I tell you why I think they're making this movie bad? Because this way nobody thinks about the Space Needle, and they think how bad the movie is. Do you get what I'm saying?
Could easily be that because they don't have to consciously process it. All that needs to happen is they need to see the trailer and the poster, because the poster has the Space Needle with the explosion behind it and the skull, and to me that's sufficient right there. Big franchise movie connected
Right.
to 9/11, and it's got the Space Needle blowing up. That's powerful imagery.
Yeah. I think they just want to put it into your subconscious, but they don't want people talking about the movie as, because then people are going to be like, wow, you remember that great movie we saw on the Space Needle? I think it's more they just want people to talk about how crappy the movie is, because it's sucks, man. And that's why I'm wondering, I want other people to see it and see if they agree with me, because I couldn't believe what I was seeing at the end. You know, I'm thinking, okay, this can't be the end, but it was. I was like, something's not right. But anyway, like I said, you know, other than the predictive programming for the Space Needle, I didn't see any Elvis stuff. I didn't see, you know what I mean.
Okay, here's
But you'll
something.
find some things you're really good at.
Well, I watch this stuff with a notebook.
Say it
I
again.
watch stuff with a notebook, and I try not to miss anything in the theaters. But one thing I saw in the trailer I want to get run by you is they're dancing and they show the floor cracking like an earthquake. So the Space Needle's floor cracks before it explodes, right?
Right, but it wasn't an earthquake.
No, it wasn't, but visually,
They,
the floor cracking as they're dancing in the Space Needle, I think could reference
right.
the earthquake you've been talking about.
Well, can I just clarify this? I don't know if your viewers understand. I'm not saying it's going to be an earthquake.
Not an earthquake, but we've referenced this idea of like the land, some kind of a cleaving, a bomb, but something,
Right.
some kind of crack is inferred
Some
here.
event.
And there have been
Right.
earthquake, some event, and they've been doing earthquake drills there. And to me, that's like, okay, that could have the personnel from DHS in place to do the psyop. But anyway, that seems to be part of the story here, the earth shaking or some kind of crack it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I tell you what I've been getting lately. Everybody's sending me videos of talking about how there's volcanic activity. It's going to blow. It's underneath the water and earthquakes everywhere. Literally every video people are sending me links to. And first of all, I'll just tell you this: every year they do this. The same thing every year. They just talk about something's coming. Every year they do this. And what I'm saying is that obviously going to happen, but what they're doing is they're putting it out there, and what's going to happen is when the initial strike happens, which we're saying is probably going to be a supposed nuke, but we believe in that. But I'm saying, at least I don't know what you believe, but we're going to see massive explosions, but it's not going to be from what they're saying it is. But then it's going to trigger a supposed volcanic or tsunami or earthquake. You get what I'm saying? That's it's the secondary and third incidents after maybe the initial shock of what it is. Because it has to be a supposed nuke, because that would make the only sense for America to go into war to attack someone. You know, go on.
No, I'm with you on that. And I have seen a lot of reports about some kind of volcanic activity that could cause some damage out there off the coast of Oregon. I've seen that, and they have been doing these drills where they said they had a simulation, and the simulation said that if a 7.5 magnitude earthquake were to hit off the coast of Seattle, it would cause a 42-foot tsunami to hit downtown. And we talked about this before, but yeah, they do in fact have this reoccurring theme, and they do drills for earthquakes there, mass casualty stuff. But as far as what's going to happen to the Space Needle, all I know is that if this is the center of the next 9/11, that's going to be the corresponding icon they destroy to the Twin Towers.
Yes, or it's going to still stand while everything else is gone. You know what I mean?
Well, let me add one more. At the end of season 1 Fallout, they focus on this Vegas-like scene that's post-nuke, and you've got a Space Needle. And that's significant because they were going to start filming the next season, and they couldn't because of the fires in Los Angeles at the beginning of this year that were described as nuclear, etc., Hiroshima, Nagasaki. They made those comparisons, but Fallout about post-nuke was literally postponed because of it. But the end of the season had the standing Space Needle. So you might be right. That might be some kind of twist. At the end of Westworld, they have a Space Needle situation, and it looks all melted.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, look
at the Fallout.
Look at the end. See, Westworld and Fallout, same director. But if you look at Westworld season 3, season 3 or 4, I mean, the cover has like this skull, and the inside of the socket you see a Space Needle, and all throughout the film at the end you have this imagery that all suggests an EMP, and the Space Needle is this like kind of weird bent Space Needle is just part of the imagery. So anyway, it's all connected to this theme of the incoming blast, the nuke, the EMP.
Yeah. Well, you know what, man? I know you don't have much time, so I'll call when I have other information. Because right now, I only called just to talk about the Final Destination crappy movie. I want to hear your take on it as soon as you see it.
Yeah, I appreciate the review, and I'm gonna go see it in the theater on Friday morning. And one of the reasons I watch these things in the theater is the trailers generally have some relevant information that corresponds to everything else the same way. So we'll see. But yeah, thanks for the call, and thanks for warning us
All right.
about what a terrible movie it is.
All right.
All right, see ya.
Yeah, all right. Take care, man.
All right, phones are open. 505-510-4226. Cope says they can probably artificially make tsunamis, like Fukushima, the original 311. That was 311, 2011. And at the time, Alex Jones was selling iodine because, and you know what? Laura Loomer, we mentioned her this morning. She's been selling radiation first aid kits. So they're getting ready for the next thing. And fallout is a huge part of it. One of the common themes I mentioned this with Westworld, with Stranger Things, is this fallout at the end of the season. The snow and the ashes raining down, and fallout has to do with, I think, what the something in the air, which we alluded to. Like, why is this Marilyn Manson song standing out right now? We're looking at it, number 2 on the charts, cover of Phil Collins, In the Air Tonight. Someone mentioned it, and I was thinking, well, it does seem to lend itself to this other scenario of the fallout and the lockdown premise. And he's relevant in this context because his present album is called One Assassination Under God, and it came out on Kennedy's death day. And of course, this is following the summer where Trump gets the headwind. And then he's on tour, and his final track is Coma White. He plays that live, Coma White, which is the song where he has a video that he plays JFK in, and he gets assassinated. And significantly, the video was pulled from MTV because JFK Jr. died. And it had JFK on a cross. It alluded to the son of JFK because the song's about a third Jesus. Very bizarre story if you get into the nuance of that particular music video. But he made a statement about he didn't mean for his music to have some kind of didn't mean to make a statement or didn't mean to reflect on it. It had nothing. It was a coincidence, in other words. So predictive programming is kind of built into this artist's catalog in a lot of ways. He was associated with Littleton, was commenting on it, all based on the premise it was real, of course. And the question was what role art and music had to play in it. Copaesthetic says blackout seemed to be the theme they've been pushing. Okay, here's another connection. The Trump head wound and the nuke thing, like the 42 miles from Butler to East Palestine. So we're looking at these connections. Well, another connection is on 7/13, 1977 and 7/13, 2019, you had the blackouts in Manhattan from 42nd Street on that put 42,000 people in the dark that were spaced exactly 42 years apart. So the blackout date in my mind, I have a mind map on it. I put 7/13 down as a blackout date back in 2020. So I mapped that one out. Infinite Plane Radio. Hey, hold on a second here. I'm trying to, there we go, zoom in so you don't see anybody's numbers. Is this loud? Can you hear me okay? I hear some background noise. Okay, I have to kill phones. You know what? I've got to work out a better system here. Skype has been terminated. Maybe I should go back to using Streamlabs or something. Copacetic says prepper channels have been pushing power grid outage fear porn. Gondola Wish says Silo is another TV series worth watching about the poisoned air and underground living. What is that thing you put in your phone? Is it pound something something to block your number? I accept blocked numbers, but I'm dealing with a very rudimentary system at the moment. Now, I got a question. How come these preppers are not already prepped after 2020? Like, that stuff should still be good, right? How long does the storable food items, how long does the InfoWars neighbor's ass beef jerky last? You think they'd be prepared already? Mizell says DIA had a power outage today, affecting lights. Well, I was bringing up that date 7/13. That's also the date that the movie How It Ends came out. And How It Ends, uh, we noted, had some scenes, the Space Needle knocked over, but on the cover, it's got the guy with the mask, came out July 13th, 2018. A man fights through an unfolding apocalypse. And now that one, this is actually interesting. A volcanic eruption triggers a massive burst of fire, ash, and shockwaves. So I thought How It Ends, I don't remember how, I didn't recall how it actually happened. I thought it might have been a nuke or a bomb. So here's the premise of it. Will and Sam are a young couple expecting a child. He flees from Seattle to visit her parents. Then the U.S. has reports of a seismic event off the West Coast. It disrupts the electrical power and telecommunications grid. So this movie, How It Ends, came out on 7/13. It's about Seattle. And it begins with, let me go ahead and share my screen. Seismic event off the West Coast disrupts the power and telecommunication. Again, this is in Seattle. Space Needle does fall in some scene here, but it says soon after a volcanic eruption triggers a burst of fire, ash, and shockwaves. So you got the volcano thing. We'll go through and see what else came out here. It says here, How It Ends is based on a 2010 script called Blacklist. Okay. But anyway, the date 7/13 happens to be 113 days from 11/3. Just kind of a interesting connections. 11/3 is the date the One World Trade Tower opened. So there's some significance there because you're talking about 9/11. And then, of course, the Seattle 3/11, oftentimes 11/3. We've noted these pairings of like 9/11, 119, 6/11 with these various events. And it goes on. And the number 42 I mentioned, these are repeated things. These aren't gematria calculations. We're just describing how things are presented. And this movie, How It Ends, of course, Seattle, West Coast. And I'll see if I can pull up a scene. So I seem to remember something with a Space Needle falling. Okay, let's see here. Cause of the apocalypse explained. Oh, listen to this. At the conclusion of the film, how was the Space Needle still intact? I'm going to have to look into this. I might have to rewatch it. Maybe I'll just make Friday a bad movie day. I'll watch as many bad movies as I can. I recall watching this movie, and it was standard doomsday stuff, but it was before I was really aware. I mean, I was aware of certain things, but I wasn't looking at movies so critically. It didn't really become very clear how synchronized things were until after 2020. That's when it became just completely undeniable, as it still is. Let me go through your comments. Gondola Wish says, I find it interesting that 13 and 33 are holy numbers and they were co-opted and inverted for darkness. Well, the Twin Towers construction begins 1968, destruction 2001, so it's 33 years later. And then 13 years later, on 11/3/2014, they opened the One World Tower. So you have the 13 and the 33 built into it. Might be some significance to the number 46 as it pertains to Kennedy. We've kind of went through these. You combine the two. But these are all integrated. It's like the Marvel Comics universe. All of the various psyops, terror attacks, shootings, and all the rest, they all exist within a fictional universe. that all presume the other things happened, that these various bad guys exist. And one of the fascinating studies has been to look at how the character known as David Hogg became a real person, like a real boy, like Pinocchio. He went from an actor, a character on a screen, to now he's in politics. And he's he's a gun control activist, but he's one of the vice chairs of the DNC. And he's been accused of a lot of things. He's as far as like being an actor and all that, none of it has stuck. The truth doesn't really matter. So it just shows you how they can kind of just force meme anything into existence. And people who don't exist are given backstories and then they exist. It's kind of like time travel. Like they came in from a different timeline and they just synthesize it. And the irony is that the fake people are realer within the world stage context than real people. Real Trump's fake. Chris Lee Airy says, IPR, you know that the game Dead Island 2 was released after Hitler's birthday and the Los Angeles fire's date was before Elvis's birthday. Interesting connection. Jurassic Liars has talked about the significance of Elvis's birthday with relation to the fire and that Rose Parade. The duration between the release of the LA fires is 1 year and 8 months. Oh, the games and the fires. Fascinating. I'll have to look at this because the release dates are significant always. You know that speaking of Seattle, I'm just pointing out the consistency of this. Wicked, which I went to go see when it came out on 11/22. We all know the significance of it, but it had previously had a release date of 11/3. I think that's when it was first screened. But one of the things that I pointed out here is that it's part 1 of 2, and it ends when the witch causes a blackout in Emerald City while she's floating up in the air singing that song, Defy Gravity. Now, the end of part 1 with an EMP-like scene in the Emerald City stands out to me because, of course, Seattle is referred to as the Emerald City. So you have a blackout. There's this lightning in the sky effect behind her when it happens, but another reference to a blackout in conjunction with the Seattle thing. And you can't really separate the nuke from the blackout. And there was a movie called Canary Black that was a trending #1 movie. And it had been, let me see if I can pull this up. Canary Black. They talk about a digital nuke. Okay, here's Canary Black. And I believe the actress is from Underworld. It's an action film. I don't know if it was good or not because I'm not watching these movies with any expectation. I'm just studying it to see what are they planting into the collective subconscious? What are they beaming out there into our heads? The bad guy in this movie looks like Vladimir Putin. And he's the one who creates this digital nuke. And I recall now at the end of the movie, there's this scene where the global government is assembled, like at the UN or something, and they're all being hacked and extorted. Gondola Wish says, have you looked into the film Until Dawn? It's a movie based on a horror game. Tons of symbolism. Definitely worth watching. I have not. But it's based on a game. That's another common thing we've noted. Like The Last of Us is trending right now, based on a game. I haven't seen it, but I've been told, and some in Gilda have pointed out that it contains a great deal of the same. So what we're talking about here is the atmosphere, the mental atmosphere, the environment that they're creating. What are they injecting into this closed system? And in the lead up to the lockdowns, we were hit with years and years and years of zombie stuff. Zombie movies were all predictive programming for quarantine. But then leading up to it, you had things even as blatant as a 5-part documentary about pandemics on Netflix right before. Like, they really did prepare us for it by educating us with the entertainment. And the public has been given an education on fallout and lockdown procedures. They have to teach you how to respond to the psyops. That's how you get into the alternate reality game. They make participation compulsory. The only out you have is getting an IPS press pass, becoming media, and therefore unlockdownable because you're essential. And I plan to do that. If there's a lockdown, I'm not staying home. And that reminds me, there's this Nicolas Cage movie called The Humanity Bureau. And this is a 2018 film. The Humanity Bureau. You know what I like about AI? I can just like half-ass spell it, just throw the words out there, and it's kind of gibberish, but it'll fix it without even asking me. But I'm not spelling it right on Wiki, and it's going all over the place. The Humanity Bureau stars Nicolas Cage, 2017 film. Okay, that's the one. But it's about a lockdown. Oh, here it is, 2018 Canadian science fiction directed by Rob King, starring Nicolas Cage. So he's a government agent, and it's all about how everybody's been locked down and they're not allowed to leave. And the Geiger counters are illegal, contraband. So you can't even get the tools you would need to know if the place that you're walking through is still contaminated. It says here, the Geiger counter measures radiation, and they're given iodine tablets. But anyway, they find out the big secret is people are locked down for no reason. People are locked down over lies, and they're not allowed to own these tools that could reveal the big lie. And this is all done because the government is orchestrating some kind of culling of the population. Kind of a dark movie, but again, pure fantasy. It's not like they could actually fake something on this scale and lock down the entire world under a false premise. No, that could never happen. Escape from New America is the tagline. Looking in the background, typical stuff. To be quite honest, ChatGPT could do a much better movie poster than this. One of the benefits to AI is just the general quality of stuff is going up, in my opinion. Mizelle says, I'm watching The Last of Us now. I kind of want to start. I started watching it. I don't know if I want to commit. I've just been fixated on vampire movies for some reason. Like, vampire movies actually explain a lot about human relationships. You know, the duality, the hypnotism, the lies, the false facade, the fake backstories. Like, there are reasons why these are so persistent, these myths, you know, vampires and the like, because they're real. They may not suck literal blood, but they might as well. In fact, it might even be better. You know, given the choice, you want 6 months of mental torture or just give me a pint of your blood. I'm like, yeah, here, just drink and go. You know, it'd be less in the long run. What's up, Pippi Langstruff? Thank you for joining. Tom103 says, Minecraft game movie, the only billion-dollar movie this year, probably some shit in there. 100%. Look, we have been predicting the occurrences of predictive programming with regularity. One of the criteria is it for the masses? Is it heavily promoted? And I believe that Minecraft is on McDonald's now or something. So yeah, 100%. Same thing with the Mario Brothers franchise. The Mario Brothers video game. And then you had the Super Bowl Game Over. Luigi, a game character. And his twin Mario. And then this is, remember this? We brought this up last week. That when Elon Musk was on SNL, he was Wario. And of course, now he's the evil CEO. And the evil CEO gets taken out by Luigi. And Wario is on the stand and Luigi has a red turtle and is about to kill him with it. And then they stop the show. So you have the Luigi versus Elon Musk as early as that SNL. That's some predictive programming. Pippi says, "Where is Nama? Kiss face emoji." Uh, right now, I don't expect as many people to show up because the main channel has been blocked because of South Pole. You're not allowed to be too satirical unless you label it properly, I guess. Maybe that's the issue. I should just label this comedy. This is all a Poe. I've considered that before as a tactic. Would that work? And then I realized that we're better off not even attempting to breathe their air. We don't need it. We don't want to be a part of their ecosystem. I don't want to be on the anti's team. I'm not going to throw in my lot with the Mandela affected or the chemtrail huffers or Q Street. The reason why we've created this third branch of media, parallel media, is because you cannot save them if they're in the box. Their frame of reference is askew. They're just fundamentally wrong. And there is correct and incorrect. There is right and there is wrong. Truth is not relative or subjective, although the world stage allows for a lot of subjectivity. But the mainstream worldview, which is built upon an edifice of fake history and current fake news, is intrinsically disconnected from reality. I mean, it mostly aligns, but it has the capacity to strategically fake things and steer the course of the dominant narratives. So it's a world of lies, and alternative media is a world of alternative lies. And that's where many people get stuck. And if you can't see outside of your box and everything that you see on the screen is going to go through that, you're always going to be wrong. I pointed out this great example of this. It was a security guard, someone who did bodyguard work, security work, and he was analyzing the Trump shooting, and he said, "There's no way this is real. They would not have propped up a target under the presumption that there was only one shooter, that nothing about it was done right." And he said, in his opinion, it was faked. But then he added that they did kill the fireman by accident, and they had to kill the shooter, so they found some degenerate. So the guy had the discernment to recognize a hoax, but he couldn't explain it in its bigger context. Now, we didn't see the fireman die. We didn't see the shooter die. So we have to trust them or take them at their word. And so he takes them at their word. Okay, those guys died, so how do I explain it? And in his attempt to explain it, he made up a conspiracy theory. He added on top of the mainstream lies. I call that MSM plus. If he was looking at this appropriately, his response would have been, well, since the Trump thing was fake, then the fireman's not dead, the shooter's not dead, the media on both sides colluded with this, and then you could look into, as we have, the individual photographers, the pictures that they produced, what other events that they were doing similar things. I mean, the photographer who photographed the bullet whizzes by Trump's head, that bullet's right there. He takes a picture of it. He was the same guy who photographed the Secret Service agent whispering into George W. Bush's ear that a plane had attacked the World Trade Center. So we've been analyzing this in detail. And that security guard didn't have enough information to have a complete picture. So he artificially arrived at a picture by confabulating. And that's what conspiracy theorists generally do. They run with confabulations, alternative lies. Like, you don't need fantasy to fill in the gaps. You can just say, we don't know. We don't have enough information to believe this. And that leaves you in the category of non-believers. And non-believers are despised on the world stage, and they always will be. That's why we had to form our own branch of media, because they will never welcome this. But what we can do is we can form a large enough demographic that not only do we not need to breathe their air, but the people who are stuck in Trutherville will actually have a true alternative to the world of lies. Okay, so I have to take off. Didn't have a whole lot of time. Jurassic Liars let us know that the movie Final Destination Bloodlines is terrible. And I'm not surprised. I almost just want to watch it tonight. I mean, should I go pay to see a bad movie? But again, I have to. I have to. I've done it before. I have a list of bad movies. I have a stack of notebooks that are just me taking notes on these various bad movies. And I pay attention to them because I know their real purpose. It's just propaganda analysis. But I'll be watching it Friday morning. As much as I'd like to watch it here on my phone, I have to see the trailers that precede it. Because every time I've watched one of these movies, the entire framing of it forms a gestalt, a bigger picture, and the trailers are always clues. Gondola Wish says, "You'll never hear the dog ate my homework coming from IPS." Well, now I use ChatGPT. Like, there's no excuse for not getting homework done. I've been finding so many uses for AI. It's just become a part of my workflow in quite literally everything. And I'm still doing real art, and I still write like a human. However, there's a lot of uses for it that are just they magnify what you can do. It's continuing to impress me. If you're an editor, like a book editor, if you're not using this, you're going to be replaced by it because it's better than what an editor can do. And lately, I've been going through Gilded, and I'll copy and paste the last 48 hours of comments, throw it into ChatGPT, and I'll say, distill this down into a succinct synopsis, provide links and bullet points, and it'll give me a newsletter of what we talked about with relevant links. Very simple, but useful, because then I can send that to 1,000 people in a mailing list because maybe they're not all participating in the Gilded think tank. So that's one of the things I've been working on developing here, and soon it'll be automated. But I do have to take off for now. I put this morning's archives up on the site ips.monster, and later tonight, if not tomorrow morning, I'm going to post on Ko-Fi a link. So if you want to purchase any of the PSYOP trading cards, those are going to go into print on the 21st. I'm getting the files together, finalizing the designs, and they're going into print. And depending on how many people purchase sets in advance, it's going to be between 20 to 30 cards probably. Yeah, I'm pretty much, somebody had said I promote Netflix. I'm like, I'm actually secretly working for Netflix, getting you all to watch Netflix movies. And I cannot separate Netflix from the news. It's quite literally just seamless. There's no barriers here. But Netflix is one of the clearest examples of propaganda entertainment because these are the same. And then more significantly, and maybe you could just say it's coincidence, but the founder of Netflix being a relative of Edward Bernays and Sigmund Freud really spells it all out here. And then with the Obamas getting into Netflix and producing that Leave the World Behind, that seals it. You have somebody high up in government presiding over many psyops, now working at Netflix, producing a film with Netflix that is full of predictive programming. I mean, that's not an insignificant thing to note here because people ask, well, who's doing it? It's got to be a simulation. No, government. It's propaganda. And you can see, I mean, Barack Obama is a metascripter. And he is represented in many, many movies in these roles that are antagonistic to the characters that represent Trump. And I pointed this out many times, but it's too consistent a pattern to dismiss it. We're seeing structural parallels that are, I mean, these are like parallel narratives that are built into our media ecosystem that go for years and years. I mean, like we came to know Trump through Biff Tannen before he became Biff Tannen. In fact, someone in some editorial just called him Biff Tannen the other day. It's been an interesting week, though. We had the re-entry of the Cosmos 482. Didn't hit New York, but the timing of it is very significant. As in the film Megalopolis, the falling of the Soviet space satellite was sort of a marker for when the end begins, and they had to reboot everything. And that particular satellite was going to Venus, and now it's back after a 53-year journey. And if you look at, Venus in this context, Venus, Lucifer falling to Earth, I mean, there might be a subtext to it, as there is with everything. I mean, yes, they're faking space travel, but there's always a purpose behind the stories that they tell us. The Menendez brothers are close to freedom. Judge reduces murder sentences. This shocked me. I thought the Menendez brothers were already free. But no, that was a little confused. We talked about RFK Jr. swimming in sewage. I was actually creating a movie poster for Swamp Thing. Here it is. RFK Jr. as Swamp Thing. And it's got to be PR. Why is he swimming in the sewage? For the same reason he rejects the vax. For the same reason he's barefoot on airplanes. For the same reason that he field dresses bloated bear carcasses in the back of his van. He's supposed to represent something scary to the vaccinated left. Something scary because he's anti-science, he's dirty, he's heathen, he's out there in nature. And I think they're trying to create a composite character here. It's this rural versus urban dialectic that they're playing into. I think it's all theater. Like, I don't think he's really just swimming in sewage. This has got to be a psyop. Gondola says, I have no doubt they program a lot of harmful frequencies into these films. That's why I will not watch them. Well, you're going into the black cube. Once you're in the theater and they shut the lights off, you're in a black cube. And I think there's some significance to this black cube, material realm, media manipulation, the monolith as the screen, the black monolith from Space Odyssey, the monolith hotel at Ground Zero. It's all a symbol of this realm. And a lot of it has to do with light and the significance of light. That's why I was trying to find my notes here on the Latin name for, I'll see if I can pull it up now. The founder of Manichaeism. There was a title he was given that looks like Kubrick. He was called an Apostle of Light and the Supreme Illuminator. I've been obsessed with this particular idea for some time, and I've been reading a bit more into the history of this individual, and the name is really just a title, but fundamental to his belief system is that there is this concept of the soul being trapped in darkness and this light versus dark, and the purpose is to transcend the material world. This is Gnosticism, more or less. I don't know what happened other than I think they killed him. I'm pretty sure he was crucified or something. But I've been delving into this symbolism, though, of the black cube, the black monolith, the screen, and this ubiquitous symbol, and how it's just intrinsic to our programming. Merging with the black monolith was the theme in the Space Odyssey. And again, if space is just a metaphor for the space between your ears, your mind, then what we're seeing here is the merging of your worldview with the simulation. So the simulation theory is not really a theory, but there is a model you could use, that we live in a mental simulation of the world that is largely programmed. Our internal Truman shows. So I can understand one's reticence to actually going into the theaters. Just a reminder, every time your phone is off, when the screen is black, it's a black mirror and goetic demons are watching you. Many of their sigils correspond to the emojis that you use on a regular basis. Someone has done some work on this, and there is a there. you could make the case, if you want to delve into the grimoires and the fundamentals of black magic, are we evoking demons with our phones? We'll see. Final Destination Bloodlines. This is the screen cap that I took that I was referencing for Jurassic Liars. Abraham Lincoln superimposed over an exploding space needle. What do you make of that? Okay, I have to be out of here. I'm actually late. So we'll continue this conversation in the morning, most likely. Thank you.